First, we'd like to welcome you all coming out to our PTO meeting tonight. Before we begin, I have to have a statement to read. In order to provide parents with an opportunity to learn more about the school community, tonight's PTO meeting is being filmed by school staff. The video will be posted on the school's website and shared with parents. Please keep on topic and avoid any inappropriate language. The filming of PTO meetings is part of a Charles County public school goal to increase parental involvement and engagement. So thank you again. We want to invite, thank you all for coming out today. Tonight's meeting, based on the agenda, if you all didn't get an agenda, we have one here, and also there's a sign-in sheet going around the room. So basically, the topic of tonight is the safety of our schools, and tonight we have Jason Stoddard here tonight. He's going to present with us. He's going to give us a presentation tonight. Before I begin the meeting, Jason Stoddard has served as a peer reviewer and an assessor of the Department of Justice and a senior faculty member with the Leadership Development Institute of the Maryland Police and Correctional Training Commission. He holds numerous certifications and has been presented the annual Sheriff's Award 4 times, awarded as Police Officer of the Year by the Great Award of JCs, and presented a Bronze Medal of Valor from the Sheriff's Office for showing exceptional courage at unusual personal risk in capturing 5 armed subjects. Most recently, well not most recently, but recently, he received the Governor's Award for outstanding work in helping to create the Charles County Sheriff's Office Citizens Police Academy. He holds a Master of Art in Organizational and Executive Leadership from Liberty University and a Bachelor of Science in Criminal Justice from the University of Maryland, University College. As Director of the School Safety and Security, he is responsible for developing a new school system safety and security plan, executing the plan and serving as advisor to Superintendent Kimberly Hill as other school personnel on school safety. So we will definitely be having him, and I'm excited to hear what he has to tell us. Before we begin with that, just an update. The last time we met, we've had our trunk or treat, and that was a huge success. We want to thank all the parents that came out, participated, whether you were there as a trunk or whether you were just there coming around trick-or-treating with your kids. We had a great time, and it was a wonderful event. We have some upcoming volunteer opportunities. One is this Friday, we have a talent show. We're still in need of a few judges to participate. It starts at 6. Judges would arrive about 5:30, 5:45 to get acquainted. The next event that we need volunteers for is our holiday shop. This should have come home with your students today. So check their Tuesday folders and make sure that this comes back to the school as soon as possible to get the schedule you would like. Second, we're talking about upcoming fundraisers. We just had our recent Red Robin fundraiser, and our fundraising extraordinaire will update us on that.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you for coming out. And also thank you for your help with our ongoing fundraisers throughout the school year. Our most recent fundraiser was Red Robin, and this school raised $320 from that fundraiser. So thank you again for your support. The weather during the winter months is a little trickier, so we try to avoid those for our outside fundraisers. So our next fundraiser won't be until March, and that'll be at Lido's March 3rd. But you'll get flyers as the date is closer. Our next in-house fundraiser is Texas Roadhouse, and these folders should have gone home, I believe it was last week. So we earned back 10% from this, and we're doing gift cards, not the rolls like we did in the past, but you can use the gift cards to purchase the rolls.
And the benefit of that is that you do not have to be in the area. So if someone lives in Pennsylvania and has a Texas Roadhouse, you can send them a gift card and they can go get rolls. So you don't have to only go to the La Plata one or only go to the closest one. You can use them anywhere. They make good Christmas gifts. They're not due back until December 5th. And we also have an incentive sheet that also should have went home, I believe it was last week in Tuesday folders. The top selling, there are various incentives. One of them being, if you just sell one, the child will receive a free meal. What we're trying to push our kids to do, the top selling class will receive a Texas Roadhouse party where they'll come here, give our kids pizza, and help celebrate and congratulate them on winning the top selling class. So definitely push that, and if there's any other questions about any of the fundraisers or volunteer opportunities, please by all means see us at the end of the meeting. Our next, as Ms. Watson told us, because of the weather, we do not typically have a meeting in December. Our next meeting won't be until January 23rd at 6 o'clock, and that is a Thursday. It will not be on a Tuesday, it will be on a Thursday, January 23rd.
I think the Tuesday, we're not in school.
We're not,
Thank
the
you.
children are out Monday and Tuesday.
Thank you, okay, that's what it was. So we wanna make sure you have that down, but again, an agenda will be coming home in January about that as well. I would like to turn the floor over to Mrs. Brown to update us on the principal's corner.
Okay, I wanted to tell you a couple things that we're getting ready to start. We're going to have attendance awards this year. And it's not for perfect attendance, it's for excellent attendance. You will be getting a flyer about it, but your children have an opportunity to earn an award every month. But in addition to that, we're going to get brag tags. So they're, at the beginning, they're gonna get to choose whether they want a little chain for their backpack or a necklace chain. And then each month, they'll have a chance to earn a different brag tag, so they can collect it. And if the kids really like it, the children really like it, I should say. If the children really like it, then we're going to probably do other kinds of awards to just add to it, so they have an opportunity to show their pride. I wanted to also tell you about a change in our award ceremonies. For the last few years, we've been doing it during the day, and you know, there are parents who work have to take off for that, and it becomes a problem for them. So it felt like there was no real way to, if you do it during the day, then some people are happy. If you do it at night, then those people may not be happy. And so what we're going to do is now for the typical awards, we are actually just going to give your children their awards at the same time in their classrooms. And so, you know, it will be a special occasion. We're going to be taking pictures of that. And then on that night, which this time is December 4th, we are going to have an award ceremony. But we started a new award last year called the Blue Crab Spirit Award, which is a special award that teachers give to one student in their class every quarter. And so we're going to do that award ceremony at night. And so you'll get a special invitation if your child is one of the ones who has earned or been given the Blue Crab Spirit Award. And then we'll have that ceremony at night. So we're trying it out. We're going to see, you know, how parents feel about it, how children feel about it. We want it to be special for the children. Another thing that we will do at the nighttime award ceremony would be to show all the pictures that we took during the day of the individual classroom award ceremonies that went on. So you'll be hearing more about it. You'll get a flyer for that as well. I think that's it.
Well, thank you, and again, we definitely want to turn the floor over to, first, before we turn the floor over to Mr. Stoddard, are there any questions about what we've discussed so far? Questions, concerns, comments? Okay, well, right now we're going to turn the floor over to Mr. Stoddard and enjoy our presentation.
Good evening, everybody.
Good evening.
Now that I'm thoroughly embarrassed because you know my entire history, I'd really like to know where you got that from, because that's not the normal one.
Google's a little scary.
That people get that from.
Google will hurt your
Yeah, yeah, Google apparently tells everything about everybody. As I said, my name is Jason Stoddard. I'm the Director of School Safety and Security for our school system. I've been here for about a year and a half. I started in April of last year, part-time, before I retired in July. And I retired after spending about 20 and a half years with the Charles County Sheriff's Office. my history is a little bit different than what most people's, most of my colleagues are. I actually had the unfortunate opportunity to respond to several active shooters during my career. So I've kind of come to a little bit of I come to school safety and security with a little bit of different knowledge because I've kind of been there and done that. I also used to travel around the country and teach police officers how to respond to bad things that happen inside of schools. So I work from a very big reality base because we've been there and done it. So it's not just theory, it is what we've experienced and what we've done. But the one thing that you'll find about what you're going to learn tonight is what we have done so far this year to update our school safety and security. The one thing that anybody who does this job, not all of us agree on everything that we should be doing and what those priorities should be. But the one thing that we do agree upon is the more layers that we can build in, the better off that we will be. So that's what we're trying to do. So as you watch what we're doing and see the things that we're doing, understand it's all layers. If after any tragedy, the thing that really hurts our career field, and it hurts public opinion too, is after any tragedy that happens inside of a school, all the talking heads get on TV and tell us that one solution that's going to stop all of this. And frankly, there is no one solution. If it was that simple, we all would have done it by now. And it is not that simple. School security isn't just about active shooter events. Active shooter events are increasingly rare. However, what is more common in schools are child custody disputes. We have them, especially at elementary school levels, every day. Angry parents that come in here because of something that has allegedly happened to their child. That could be, depending on the reactions or what we see from the parents, that could be a security threat to us. Kids that elope from our buildings. Those are issues that we have to take into account because what happens if a child runs out here and gets across Piney Church Road? So many of you drive Piney Church Road. Do people do 35 on Piney Church Road? Nobody does 35 on Piney Church Road. All right, so we have a broad spectrum of things that we need to watch out for. It's not just that culminating event of an active shooter. So as we get into this, understand one of the things that we wanted to start with is exactly what our office does. So the Office of School Safety and Security, we're responsible, you see all those pretty words up there, we're responsible for policy and procedure to be advisor to the superintendent. That's ultimately what I do. We are trying to do everything that we can to foster and maintain safe and secure environments for our 27,501 students and our almost 4,000 staff members. Because frankly, we hire our staff members to be exceptional, and our staff members will only be exceptional if they feel as though that they're respected, so part of something that's larger than them, and if they feel safe. So they are a huge portion of not only how we keep our buildings safe, but a lot of the decisions that we make. So as we get into this, also what some of the things, so we have different sections within inside of my unit. We do safety, our safety and security section. We do our physical security things. So we look at door locks and we look at window films and we look at cameras and we look at things like that. Those are the things that physical security does. The next thing is I also run our internal affairs section. I have 2 investigators, 2 retired police officers that work for me that do all the staff misconduct investigations. So if we have an allegation that comes in against a staff member, it comes to my office. My office does the investigation separate of any other portion of the Charles County Public Schools. We are a fact-finding section that is responsible to determine what happened. We don't do punishment, we don't do any of that, we just find what happened. My 2 investigators, one is a retired police sergeant from Baltimore City. He was a homicide sergeant as well as an internal affairs sergeant. I also have a retired police officer from Metro Transit that works for me. And ultimately, our job, we view our job in internal affairs is kind of like what the fire department does. We want to get we want to get everybody on the same page so that we don't even have to have an internal affairs unit because we don't have any allegations of staff misconduct against any of our employees. That's ultimately the goal. When the first year that I came in, we had 121 investigations of alleged staff misconduct that were completed by our unit. That is, so 121 out of about 4,000 employees. That's not a large number, but it's too high. So we went in to try and figure out exactly what we could do and strategies that we could do in order to reduce that, and we were able to reduce it due to some of our strategies down to 100 last year. And this year we're on pace to reduce it even further than that. So we continue to try and figure out better ways. No one that works for our school system comes to work and goes, I think today's the day that I want to do something that's going to get me in trouble. But sometimes things happen, and we have to have an arm that investigates those things. We also run our fingerprinting and our badging section, and what we do with that is every employee that works for us, as well as 11,000 volunteers, all get background checked. And we run that as well as all the badging for our employees. So when you get hired by the Charles County Public Schools, you get a neat little badge, and that badge has some information on it, and it also allows you in and out of our buildings. We have about 6,000 people that have access to our buildings. So we have people that aren't employed by us, that are contractors, or that are like speech pathologists or people like that work in and out of our buildings, and they have to have access too, so we control all that. We have to fingerprint every one of our employees. So every one of our employees goes through multiple background checks. They go through not only a fingerprint background check, but they also go through a social security-based background check, and now we've instituted random background checks that happen throughout their careers. The next one down, so we do all of that as well. The next one down is our school safety administrator and residency investigator. This is a brand new position. I have a former principal that now works for me. He was a principal at 3 different schools. He brings a different perspective on school safety because I've never been an educator, never will be. He has been, and running a school is something completely different. And the old retired cop can say we need to do this, but if there's no reality to it that it can't be done, it does us no good. So he brings some levity to me. He also works as our residency investigator. Believe it or not, parents lie. All right, we have 27,500 students in our school system. We have some kids that don't live in our jurisdiction that go to school at Charles County Public Schools. We are, which is a great thing to have, one of the few, if not the only, school system in the National Capital Region where people move to our jurisdiction to send their kids still to our school system. And the reason for that is our top-notch educators and the product that we're putting out on the other end. So we have some people who live in other jurisdictions, whether it's Prince George's County, St. Mary's, Calvert. We even have people from the district that send their kids down here. That if they're not paying our taxes, they're getting a free service. Believe it or not, you can pay almost $12,000 a year to send your kid to our school system. So we do have a tuition rate that you can pay. It also increases our class sizes. And one of the things that we know from research is that increased class sizes it reduces the educational level that the kids get. So we want to make sure that we're safeguarding the kids that we have here who live here. We also do investigations with people tell us that they live one place to send their kids to what they believe is their preferred school, but they actually don't. So we do those investigations too. It's unfortunate that we have to have that, but we do. And as we continue to grow, there'll be other opportunities for things to occur inside of our unit as well. You see there, we have an all-hazard approach to school safety. So as I talked briefly about earlier, we don't just look at that active shooter event because frankly, they're becoming far and few between, and we continue to see reductions in that. We're 9 weeks into our school year so far, and to my knowledge, from what I've seen, what the FBI would classify as being an active shooter, we've only had 1. It's 1 too many, but we've had 1 this school year. You listen to a lot of media that's agenda-driven. There was some reports after this latest shooting last week that we're in week 42 of the year, and there's been 46 school shootings. That's not true. It's true by the metrics that they're reading, and what they're utilizing as metrics is shootings that happen anytime, anywhere near a school. And if you read through the list of school shootings that they have, there's at 3 o'clock in the morning a drug deal going down on a street corner in Baltimore City that was near a school that was a school shooting. That's not a school shooting. So what does that do to parents as you're reading this going, we've had 46 school shootings in 42 weeks? But then and that's the only thing that you grab is that headline. You don't read the minutiae of the article, and it scares you to death. Last school year, in 2018, and we used the FBI's numbers, in 2018 there was 5 school shootings in the United States. That's 5 too many, but there was 5. There's over 40,000 school districts in the United States. Each one of those school districts has 180 days at least in their school calendar. We had 5 school shootings. The statistics of being involved in a school, being involved in an active shooter in a K through 12 environment are about like being struck by lightning twice as an adult. It's about as likely. So while they happen and they do drive policy, they are not to the propensity that a lot of people would like to think. Our schools are not under constant attack from gun violence. Our schools are not unsafe. As a matter of fact, what you will hear tonight and what I will continue to say to anyone who listens is our schools are safer today than they ever have been in the last 40 years. We have placed more money into physical security and more money into mental health care for our students than we ever have in the history of public education. And we will continue to have those things. and continue to do those things. So we have to get through the minutia of everything that's going on in the world that clouds the message of what is actually going on in our schools is very good things. So as you look up here, these are some of the enhancements that we made over the summer. We've kind of talked about the enhanced screening for our volunteers, and we've also briefly discussed how this year we implemented random background checks for all of our employees. We did about 1,600 this year. It was very good. It was very well done. We did have some conversations with some former employees. It is what it is, and we'll continue to do that. And the main reason that we'll do that is to ensure not only our staff, but also our community, that we not only hire, but we retain the best quality applicants, the best quality teachers that we can. And we will continue to do that. The next one down is the grant money. It says $1 million. We're actually up to about $1.6 million. We continue to grow in that. The reason that I put that up there is to make sure that you understand, while we receive about $1.6 million in grant funding in the last year and a half, a majority of that money, or about half, a little over half of that money, has gone to mental health care. So we've expanded things like Tri-County Youth. We now have Tri-County Youth in all of our schools. That adds another 250 kids that can receive mental health care. We also have done additional training with our staff, because understand, your kids are coming to us for about 6.5 to 7.5 hours a day. That means in many cases, we are unpacking 17.5 hours of trauma or of things that we have no control over every day before we simply teach kids arithmetic. So we have to have and provide our educators with the many skills as we can to get through all of that, just to sit kids down crisscross applesauce in the mat to start their warm-ups in the morning. So we can't do it without you. And we can't teach and build those quality children that we all want without you as parents. And so we use a lot of that money for mental health care and for expanding of our mental health footprint. We've also used that money to bring in restorative practices training. Our PBIS model that we've had for 20 years, we've led the state in PBIS. You're not. You're in pre-K. So we continue to use that money. Believe me when I tell you, I'm an old retired cop, but I know that we can't buy physical security. I can park a tank on the roof of this building. It doesn't make us any safer here. What makes us safer is the culture and climate within inside of this school. And that's where we spend the majority of our time and the majority of our money. The next thing down is our single point family reunification center. Last year we signed an agreement with the College of Southern Maryland to where if we have to do a mass evacuation for any reason of any of our schools, the kids and the staff will go to the College of Southern Maryland. The reason that we do this is, frankly, if there's something going on that's caused us to do a mass evacuation of this building, the last place that we want you as parents is here. The last place that we want your kids is here. So we're going to put them on buses and drive them away from here. So if you, for some reason, whether it's a fire, an earthquake, there's a car accident, there's something that happens, and you hear that we had to do a mass evacuation of Mary B. Neal Elementary School, do not come here. Your babies will not be here. Please respond to the College of Southern Maryland, where we will set up family reunification. So one of the things that comes out of every after-action report for every critical event in public schools is, how do we do reunification? Because when you hear that something's going on at your child's school, what do you want? Information and your babies. All right? You want your babies. But we also have a side of that. We have to make sure that we're keeping them safe. We also have to make sure that we are accounting for them. We have to make sure that they're getting the care that they need. So there's some competing things there, because you're angry, you're upset, you're anxious, and you just want your babies. And you're not going to get your babies right away. And God forbid the person who stands out in front of here and says, you can't have your baby right now, you need to go down there. And we know that's going to happen. But understand there's a process to this. Because the last thing that we want to do is to release a child to the wrong person. That's bad. All right? We don't want those beginning of school year bus trip things where we lose kids, or kids don't get off the bus, they get on the right bus, get on the wrong bus, and all. We want to avoid that as much as we can. And this is going to be a chaotic scene. So just understand that. And it's easy to say now. I'm a parent too, obviously. All right? I get it. I understand. But that's where your kids are going, is the PE building at the College of Southern Maryland. All right? And we're one of the few schools, I actually travel around the country and talk about our family reunification plan, because we're leading the way in that. There's so many people, there's so many organizations that their family reunification plan, and it was just like ours when we first got here. When I first got here, I asked, how do we do family reunification? And what I was exactly told was, we have a vice principal for that. Okay, that ain't gonna work at all, because one person can't handle this. Alright, so the next one down is our guided vestibules. If you've traveled around the county, we have our school fleet, we have buildings that are 40 years old, and there are buildings that are a year old, and they're built differently. Some of our schools don't have what you have here at Mary B. Neal, where you come in and you have to go into the main office. Some of our buildings, you come in in a stairwell that's 100 feet away from the main office, and you have full access to our buildings. If you go to over to the west side, Matthew Henson, or you go to Pickleaxon Middle School, or you go to one of our open space elementary schools like James Craig or something like that, when you walk in, they don't look anything like this building. So we have to retrofit to upgrade to the 21st century security model, and that's what we've been doing with our guided vestibules. We've currently done 16. There's about another 6 that we need to do. Some of our schools, they're going to require massive renovations to the front of the buildings in order to do that, because we have to rearrange offices. And you would think that, oh, we'll just put a door here and it'll work. No, it doesn't. It never works that way. All right, because who knew that the nurses by law now have to have a waiting room, a treatment room, a bathroom, and a bunch of other things that no one realized that the nurse has to have. But we have to abide by that. The next one down is, and McDonough and La Plata's got what we've done with McDonough and La Plata. So I'm sure many of you heard about the 2 handguns that we found in La Plata High School last year. Very scary events. All right, and the person who's directly responsible for those 2 handguns being brought into our school are the 2 young men that made really bad decisions. The good part is that people talked about it, and that's how they were found. So during those, after that, we did some security analysis, just like we always do, and we continue to do. And one of the things that we heard about was that La Plata needed some additional doors to close in the 2nd floor of their building. They needed 10 doors so that all the classrooms in the 2nd floor of the building had closable and lockable doors. So we went ahead and did that. Oddly enough, McDonough High School, which is its sister school, they were built about the same time with the same model. That school needed over 40 doors to close in the 2nd floor. We didn't hear anything from the McDonough community. So instead of just doing La Plata, we also did McDonough. McDonough's 2nd floor is now completely closed in. We have 9 open space schools left in our fleet. One of those open space schools right now is Benjamin Stoddard. However, Benjamin Stoddard's getting ready to go to like a $36 million renovation, and it's going to close that school in. So I don't know when I think, are you slotted? Did you feed into Stoddard?
Yes, we do.
Yeah, so maybe when your babies get to Stoddard, it will look completely different than it does now. All right. The next one down is our behavioral threat piece. 2 years ago, a law was passed that said that we had to make sure that we were abiding by a state law for behavioral threat assessments. So now, anytime that a child threatens another student, a staff member, or the building, we have a very specific process that we must do. We've always had that process. The difference now is we have a mandate that we have to provide follow-up care. So before, when we had a child that made some statements that they shouldn't have made, we would do the investigation, there may be punishment doled out, and there may be a little bit of follow-up care. Now there's a mandate that we do follow-up care, and that's a wonderful thing. We believe that we need to be doing follow-up care. The problem with that is it's an unfunded mandate. So we're continuing to stress an already very stressed system. So far this year, I believe, hold on one second, I'll give you the accurate numbers. So far this year, as far as our behavioral threat, just to let you know how often we're doing these, we've done 392 safe screenings already this school year. Of that, 95 have turned into risk assessments, so there are tiers to this. The safe screening comes in, and if they do it and it shows that there's some risk there, they do a risk screening. We've done 95 of those. And then 29 of those have turned into threat assessment pieces. So that's how busy our school system is as it relates to these things. And this is a big law change to provide follow-up care for all of these children because of the behaviors that they've demonstrated every day during these events.
And Mr. Stoddard, we take them very seriously, so it can be someone who's clearly just mad and says, oh, I'm gonna kill you. That has to be investigated just the same way that someone who said, I'm gonna bring a gun and kill you. So please know that we do take it seriously, and there are multiple people involved in these investigations.
Yeah, it consumes a tremendous amount of time, which it should. We need to take every one of them seriously. And I'll talk about one as we talk about the full integration of See Something, Say Something. So we have an anonymous tip line on our internet page. You're more than welcome to take a look at it. Please don't submit tips just to find out if it's a test or not, because they do work. We also participate in the state tip line. So the second Sunday that schools were open, at about 10:30 in the morning, I received a tip from a community member with an attached picture that said that there was a threat towards one of our high schools. Within 30 seconds of receiving that tip, because it comes directly to my email, I was on the phone and had shared it with the police department. The Charles County Sheriff's Office had dispatched several detectives within a matter of minutes. And within 6 hours, we were able to have boots on the ground in the living rooms of the children who had created and sent this post. We had 3 people identified within 6 hours, had done interviews with all of those children, had determined the validity and the credibility to not exist for this, and we were able to not only start school discipline, so those children never went to school on Monday, they were reported directly to the Starkey building to start the school discipline process, but they also started any criminal issues criminal prosecutions that needed to be done. So the system works when we use it properly and when we use it effectively. The next one down is our school advisory and school safety committee. So we have a school safety committee at every one of our schools. If that's something that you're interested in, I would highly suggest that you talk to your principal or your school leadership team to determine if you want to participate. We have asked our schools to build those school safety teams and to include parents or students if it's appropriate. Now at the elementary school level, we're probably not going to have a 5th grader on the team, right? But we would like to have parents there. The next one down is our update to our memorandum of understanding with the sheriff's office. Last year, we wanted to create a new memorandum. We've had a memorandum of understanding with the sheriff's office for 20 years, but we wanted to expand it. 2 of the big things that came out of that was we now share our video feeds with the sheriff's office at the real-time crime center. So if there's a crisis that goes on inside the school, they can log into our computer or into our cameras, and they can see what's going on in real time inside of the schools. The other one was key card access. All police officers, the rank of corporal and above, now have key card access to our buildings. So they can swipe in at any building that they want to, or any door that they want to swipe in during the time of crisis. And that's what we want. We want that unabated access. We've also done door numbering. As you came in, you should have seen some door numbers. That seems kind of simple and kind of odd that we'd have to number our doors, but understand most police officers, firefighters, and medics have never been inside of our buildings. So, if they have, it's hard to remember how all of our buildings look, right? There's 39 schools and centers in the Charles County Public Schools building fleet. We have 47 total facilities. It is difficult to remember all of them, and I work here. So if I'm told to go to door number 5, I know that should rest between the number 4 and the number 6. All right, so I know where I need to go. I don't, because if you tell people, so when most of the time when there's a crisis, where do they respond to? What they view as the front door. Well, it may be faster to go to the back door. All right, if you look at McDonough High School, if you've ever been to McDonough High School, what's the front door at McDonough High School? Yeah, it's weird. It's not where you think it is. All right, so we have to identify those things. The next one down is the state-of-the-art radio system. This is coming together very, very quickly. We believe that it'll be done by the end of the first semester, so we will have radios at every one of our schools that are integrated directly with the police, fire, and EMS communications at the 911 center in La Plata. They'll also have the ability to push an emergency button on the top, so if there's a student, the scenario that I'll give you, there's a student in the lunchroom that's having a seizure. If there's a student in the lunchroom that's having that seizure, the principal can be down there, push that button, and that button is the exact same button that our police, fire, and EMS has. It goes directly to the 911 center, all these bells and whistles and lights go off. The communications person down there that's answering the 911 calls can go directly with the person that's here. When that is happening, they can then dispatch whatever resources they need, and they can patch those responding police cars, fire trucks, and ambulances into our radio system and be giving directions to our staff here as the event is going on. So that will be completely done system-wide by the end of this semester. It's been about a $500,000 project that we partnered with the state to do. The next thing down is our locks and window film. So a number of our schools got new locks. So 3 of our schools got new locks this year, but as I told you, we have 9 buildings in our schools, in our system that don't have doors in their classrooms. And that's where I want to spend the money, is finishing those projects where we can close in our open space schools. The inventor of open space school concept from the 1970s needs to be tarred and feathered, because that's crushing me right now. It keeps me awake at night, because open space elementary schools they're bad. They're just bad. The window film, so we did put on a number of our buildings. I don't tell where they are or who they are, but a number of our buildings this year received window film, and that is blast-resistant window film. It's designed, it's not bulletproof, but it is designed to hold the windows together. And what that means is if you've ever seen a car accident, window tint on a car, when the car accident happens, the window, the glass stays together. In this case, the glass stays together in the frame for up to 90 seconds. As it's either being hit or shot or whatever else, it stays together for 90 seconds. So you just can't hit it and it just falls apart like a normal window does. And with inside of those 90 seconds, very good, inside of those 90 seconds, imagine what we can be doing as protective strategies inside of this building. Or how many police cars I can park in this parking lot in 90 seconds for something bad that's going on. The next one down is the trauma kits. We've deployed over 1,900 trauma kits into our school system. That means that about 95% of our classrooms and our open space areas in our schools have a trauma kit that's inside of it. In that trauma kit, there are tourniquets, there are things like overpack dressings, there are other things, chest seals and things like that. We did not put these in our schools because we believe that we're going to have an active shooter. We've been around since 1658, haven't had a single one, and we intend on keeping it that way. However, we do have tragedies and things that do happen because every day there's about 32,000 people that are operating inside of our buildings. So we've had kids this year that have fallen off of 10-foot tall pieces of recess equipment. And if you can imagine one of those kids that falls off breaks their femur bone, and if that femur bone breaks and it clips with the femoral artery, those little bodies don't have very much time. And we, up until this point, didn't have anything that we could deploy to hopefully save that child's life. Now all of our teachers get training on what this kit can do, both individually and collectively, as well as they have the kits inside their classrooms. The next thing down is the student IDs. This is a program that we continue to push out. So far we've got all of our high schools on board. We have 3 middle schools and 2 elementary schools that are testing the student IDs. This is not a safety and security program. We did use some of our money in order to pay for this. However, this is a program to modernize our school system. Just like many of you, when you go to work every day, you carry this. And what we're trying to do is to train kids to be successful adults. That's ultimately what our goal is. So when we start to integrate these things, we've integrated it so far to where our kids can use them for how they get their lunches, how they use their media centers, how they come in and out of schools. Now in elementary school, there's a little bit different. I'm not an elementary school educator. Just watch my daughter. You'll figure that out really quick. All right? I'm not an expert at that. We're reliant upon our elementary school educators to figure out how best to integrate this into their daily lives. One thing that I do know is if I give a student ID to a second grader, that student ID is never coming back. Okay, so they keep it here at the school. The names are on them. Some of the things that we've heard from elementary school parents is the worry that their names are on their IDs. You're right, they are. Because if we just put their, like an ID number on them, there's one other place in the world where they refer to people by ID number. And we're not doing that here, okay? All right, it's just not gonna happen. So what we're going to do is we're just being more cognizant of when we take pictures of our students to have those IDs, to make sure that they're covered up. When kids from elementary school aren't taking them home anyways. So it's not like you're gonna wander down a bus with it on and people will be able to see it.
And we are going to start this after Christmas, I believe. So we have the badges, we just now have to work out the logistics.
And it is. And this is a 4 or 5 year rollout. It's not something that's gonna happen overnight. And we're still building on it. And frankly, it may not work. We're the only school system in the National Capital Region that is utilizing student IDs for more than just they wear them around their neck. We're trying to integrate it into their everyday lives. Things like how they get on the bus. And when they get on the bus, can they badge onto the bus and you as a parent get a phone or get an email saying that your child badged onto the bus? Yeah. Or how teachers take attendance every day. Instead of having to do a reactive taking of attendance, the kids walk in, swipe in every day in class. Those are the things that we're looking at to try and lead the way into this program. A couple things that I found, we've also revamped some main office procedures. So this year now, all across our entire system, we have the same early dismissal and late arrival processes and procedures. So if you go from here to another school, they should be the same. Some of the things that I want to point out up here, you see that, I know that this is really difficult to read, but at the top talks about the continuum of some of the things that we face, the complexity of the threat environment that we live in, everything from cyber crime. There was just a school system that had their cyber system taken over. There was a school system in Texas that lost $2.9 million last year to get all their data back. Baltimore City lost $9 million to get their data back. This is a constant issue in our world. So we have to, and it usually results from one person, one employee, clicking on an email link that they shouldn't have clicked on, and it infects an entire system. So we continue to have that issue. Belligerent parents, you wouldn't think we had any belligerent parents, do you? Everybody trusts and respects everything that we do, and everyone understands that their kids, when they come to school, are not the same when they're at home. All right? So we do have some of that issues. We also have workplace violence. We work in our school system is about 77% women. Women, by statistics, are far more likely to be victims of domestic violence. There are two things that keep me up at night. One is our open space elementary schools, and the other is workplace violence. Somebody being involved in relationship issues that follow them to school. Because frankly, when people get that upset, get that involved, they can't cope with issues, they don't care who else they hurt in between. And that bothers me. So we've had to have some really serious conversations this year about some changes that we've had to make, some tough conversations, because we are growing and the threat still does persist. And the last one is the active shooter, which we'll talk a little bit more about later. So this is just a quick list, and once again, I know it's hard to read, of some things that we experienced last year. It's not all of them. So multiple shelters in place, several lockdowns, bomb threats, weapons, gang fights, fires, overdoses. We had a bus crash that almost killed an 8-year-old girl, weather events, all kinds of things. So no matter what we do to prevent tragedies from happening, things do happen that we have to be able to respond to. The problem that we ran into last year was the fact that we had all of these things that we had happening, but when we communicated them out, we only used two terms. One was shelter in place and one was lockdown. Those two things are very broad. And if you're at home and you hear that your child's school is in shelter in place, what immediately do you believe? Bad thing happening, right? Bad things happen. But that might not be the case. Because up until this year, we could have sheltered in place to school because we were landing a helicopter in the back lot. That's not a threat to school, but when we communicated it out, the shelter in place was, oh my God, something bad's happening, but in fact it wasn't. Or, in many cases, we sheltered in place schools because we had a staff member that we needed to take out in an emergency in an ambulance. We had a student that we had to take out in an emergency in an ambulance. I don't know how many of you have been treated in a gurney or not, have had the luxury of riding in an ambulance on a gurney. It's not your best day. So providing some privacy is what we used to do, but we weren't communicating. So we were over-traumatizing not only our kids, but also our families and our community. So we had to evolve. So this year, we have evolved and we're utilizing now the standard response protocols from the I Love You Guys Foundation. This is terminology based. These are yours. There's nothing better than coming to PTSO and getting free things, all right? And it's not pizza. So you can have these. I apologize that the writing is very small. But, do you guys have these? So, as we go through this, you can kind of follow along. Every one of our students that participates in the Student ID program has this around their neck. In addition, every one of our staff members wears this behind their ID badge. And, if you look around in this room, there's one right there. These posters are in every one of our classrooms, as well as strategically placed throughout the school building. So a couple things that they do, they are very specific and provide instructions to not only students but also staff on what they're supposed to do when they hear these specific terms. Each of our students also receives a briefing on this that are age-appropriate briefings that are done by either our guidance counselors or they're done, depending on the age, by the school principals or vice principals. So in the next 10 minutes, maybe 15, I'm going to make you experts in our standard response protocols, okay? All right, so here we go. So, the first one that we come up with is the one that we use the second most often, and it is called a lockout. As a matter of fact, we have done a lockout here at Neal Elementary School when we had a shooting directly behind the building, and they landed a helicopter in our front yard. All right, so we put the school into a lockout. What that means is we are just simply securing our perimeter because something has happened, something dangerous is going on near our school. We've had to do this 4 times this year. Once was here, once at Mount Hope Nanjemoy Elementary School due to a community stabbing, once at James Craig Elementary School due to a domestic that occurred where it was reported that one of the subjects had a rifle that was right across the street from the school. We also had to do it at J.C. Parks Elementary School because of a report of a shooting inside of its sister school right next door, which turned out to be false as well. So we have done this a number of times so far this year. And this will likely be the one that we use the second most often, and I'll tell you which one we use the most often. It could be because there's criminal activity in the area, it could be because there's civil unrest, or potentially there's a dangerous dog on our playground. Everybody laughs at my dog, I don't know why, okay? But let me explain something to you. A dangerous animal on our playground is a huge issue for us. Because think about this. If you have elementary school kids that find a dead bat,
that's on our playground. And kids are gonna pick up that bat eventually, and they're gonna pass that bat around. And then somebody's gonna put the bat into their book bag, and they're gonna take the bat home. All right? These are elementary school kids. Now, what happens when that bat comes back rapid? That's a bad day for a lot of people. All right? So, this is something that we have to concern ourselves with. All right? So, what does it mean when we go into a lockout? No one in, no one out. So, what do you have mods here? Do you have any portable classrooms here?
Yes, but
Okay.
we don't use them
You
for
don't-
students
Yeah, you
except
use
for our band
testing or
students.
band and things like that. So if you have a child that is in the portable classrooms, they will remain in the portable classrooms until they get a police escort inside the building. It does me no good to tell you, oh, we're going to bring those kids inside when there's something bad going on without a cop out there to protect them. So they will only come in when the police escort them inside. All right? And teachers, what we tell our teachers is to lock the doors inside and outside to make sure that there's nobody that can come in or come out. We're also asking our teachers to increase situational awareness. And what that means is if they have a first floor classroom of windows, we're asking them to pull their shades. We're also asking them if they're not teaching that class period when it goes on to report to the main office, because we're going to send them to different locations in the building to watch the exterior doors. Not to guard it like a sentry, but just to watch. All right? The next one is we have the teachers take attendance and note the time, and business as usual. What happens if they're landing a helicopter out front? You're going to hear it, but all the kids are smashed up against the window. Nothing's going on now. There's no learning going on. All right? If our teachers are freaking out and our teachers aren't doing what they're supposed to do, what are the kids going to do? They're going to freak out too. So we're relying upon our teachers to keep the kids in the business as usual mindset. So what do we do during class changes? Most of the time, if we don't like here, you're not utilizing your portable classrooms. So there may be like a rabid raccoon on the playground, and we're in a lockout condition because of that. So we're canceling recess, and we're not going to have the kids go out into the mods. But inside of the building, we're still operating business as usual. All right. However, if the police are chasing a bad guy around the circle out here, and it's just like loop-de-loop, like NASCAR, been there, done it, okay, we're probably not going to have class changes going on, right? Okay? All right, so because of the situation. The next one is one that we're all very familiar with. It's called lockdown. So if we ever have to put a school into lockdown, which we have once already this year, which was Matthew Henson Middle School, because we got a 911 phone call that there was a shooter inside the building. It was a fake phone call. It was a false phone call. However, no one knows that, so we have to respond to it as we would any other time. Very stressful morning. We had Matthew Henson in lockdown for about 35 minutes. So the way that comes across the PA, Mary B. Neal, we're in a lockdown condition, locks, lights, and out of sight. All right? So why would we do this? Because there's something dangerous inside the building. We have now lost time. We have to do something. It could be because we have a mental health crisis going on inside the building from somebody who's unaffected by our building. Schools attract people in mental health crisis because there's people here. And we know, as you see, there's a sign in the front door, please close the door behind you. We raise our people and our parents and our kids and everybody else, we raise them to be nice. So when you show your license and you badge in, the three parents that are behind you, what do they all want to do? Walk in. And none of us want to be like, nope, slam the door in their face. Okay? All right? But that's what I'm asking you to do. And if they want to complain, they can talk to me. I'll explain it to them. Right? And what happens when somebody just walks in and they're having an episode, they're having a crisis, they're having a meltdown, and now we have to deal with that. That person is a threat to the building because we don't know what they're capable of. The next thing down is we've had angry parents that have run past our office staff. On 2 separate occasions last year, I had a parent that attempted to attack their kid's teacher in the front office. Not here, their kid's teacher in the front office because they gave their kid a failing grade. In a second event, I had a parent that ran through the front office, ran by everybody in order to get to her child's classroom so that she could beat up the kid that she thought was bullying her kid. If we have people who are willing to go to those lengths, they are a threat to the security of our entire building. So we have to have some processes that go into that. So what we tell our teachers is to understand how to close and lock your doors. All right, turn your lights off, cover your window shades, pull your window shades. If you've ever worked in education, you may have heard of this red card, green card nonsense. We no longer do this because it made no sense to put a red card or a green card in the hallway to let the bad guy know where we were. It just didn't make any sense. So we don't do this. The only time that we would do this is on our exterior windows only. All right, so we're not doing that, but we are asking our teachers to make sure that our kids remain silent. Just so you know, we do have kindergartners that bring cell phones to school. So that is something that we have to pay attention to. We ask the teachers to take attendance and note the time. So what's the difference between a lockdown and a lockout? This is where you get to talk.
One is inside, one is outside.
One is outside, one is inside. All right, so when you're sitting at home and you get onto your Facebook community during the day and you're watching everything that's going on and you see Mary B. Neal's in lockdown, take a pause. Because I'll almost guarantee that's not what's going on. So terminology matters, okay? And as we get through this, you'll understand why. So the next one is evacuate. We've been evacuating schools since 1958. We've been doing fire drills in our schools for years. And we'll continue to do fire drills. And the one thing that you'll notice is all of our drills are based on fire drills. Why? Because we don't over-traumatize our kids. So you're not going to see our police officers running through here with full regalia, doing crazy things inside of our building in order to get us to be able to be ready for whatever event could happen. We base all of our drills on fire drills because we've all have experience with them. How much did fire drills traumatize us as kids? It didn't. You just lined up and walked out. Kind of the same thing that we're doing today. All right, so we do fire drills just like we always have. Well, the only difference that we've made this year is we're asking all of our staff members if they have a trauma kit in their classroom. Those trauma kits are located in a green bag, drawstring backpack that is placed underneath of their desk on a hook. And yes, I tested the hooks. Okay, we gave them all out. So they are supposed to take those green bags with them anytime they go outside of the building for a drill. We also ask them to bring their cell phones, and we ask them to understand where their evacuation points are and also where their rally points are. Last year we talked about rally points. We have self-evacuation points. So what we've taken the approach of, if we tell kids to run, we need to tell them where to run to. What you have is you have the luxury of having a community school. So if we told our children, if something bad was going on here and a teacher just said to run, where do you want your kids to run to? Say your house. Yeah. You want them to go home. Many of you have already had that discussion with your kids. If something bad goes on and you run away from school, you run home. You need to tell them, like we are telling them, the first people that you call is me, all right? And they need to have the ability to call you. We're not going to stop that. Because frankly, if there's something bad going on here and they're running away from here, they are far safer by running home. Now, not all of our schools have that ability. If you work in one of our outlying schools, we don't have community-based schools. But we also need to tell some of our kids who are bused here that don't know the community where to run to. So at every one of our schools, we've designed self-evacuation points or rally points that are not on our property that we tell the kids where to run to. It may be an oak tree. It may be a cul-de-sac that's right over here. But we needed a place to get them away. And it could be because of an active shooter, or it could be because we have an earthquake. The worst place to be during an earthquake is inside of a building. And sometimes if you have the option to get out, you can get out. All right, so we do have that. The next one is shelter. This is the only time you'll ever hear shelter again in our public school system. And we use this because there's an environmental issue or there's something else going on that requires us to take shelter inside of our buildings. If you're new to Charles County, welcome to the freakiest place in the world as it relates to weather. All right, we average some type of a catastrophe weather event every 4 years. All right, we have tornadoes from February to November. We have floods, and I'm sure this year we're going to get 36 inches of snow. It's going to happen eventually, all right? We just live in a freaky place, okay? All right, so we have to have the ability to be able to respond to that. So if we do have a weather event, we need to tell our people what to do. And it could be a tornado, it could be an earthquake, or it could be a hazardous material. I don't know how much you pay attention. This road right out here is the #1 road to go to the dump right down the street. Lots of hazardous materials that run up and down this roadway. Lots of hazardous materials that run up and down this roadway. All right, so what we do is, this is where we get into high winds drills. Your kids will come home and tell you, they talked about, for many of us, this is dating myself, many of you remember when we did the nuclear power drills, you'd get underneath your desk with the book over your neck. Well, we don't usually do things like that except for high wind drills, is to put the book in. That's where your kids will talk about that. All right, the next one is the one that we're going to use the most. This is something that I think changes the nature of how we communicate with you as the public if we put our school into hold. So if you ever hear or see that we've placed a school into hold, that just simply means that we are keeping the hallways clear. There is no threat to the security of the building. We use this a lot, whether it's for landing a helicopter where there's no threat to our school, whether it's for an emergency run on an ambulance, whether it's for a student. We had one the other day. We had an elementary school age child that was out of control, that was running around the building. He wasn't a threat to the building. He wasn't a threat to anything else. But we didn't want to expose the other 1,000 elementary school kids to that type of behavior and to potentially make it into a bigger issue. So we held the bells at that school until we could find the child and get the child under control. There was no threat. We've also had to do this recently at St. Charles. We had a fight at St. Charles that was 2 kids. All their friends decided to be Don King and run around and try and act a fool. We didn't want to put 1,200 additional kids into the middle of that mess until we got it all controlled, so we held the bells. So understand, if you hear the word hold, that your children's school is in a hold, there is no threat to the school. We are just simply keeping the hallways clear. And it could be for a number of different reasons, but the biggest thing is there is no threat to the security of the building. So we are asking teachers to close and lock their doors, no bathroom breaks, and it's business as usual. So in that 10-15 minutes, I walked you through our standard response protocols. What do you think? Pretty robust, isn't it? But pretty simple, pretty easy. And the kids get it. And this is the exact same stuff at kindergarten the kids will get until they're in 12th grade. So it will not be any different. So with that said, that is what I would ask you to do is if you have a social media platform that you operate on. The only one that we don't operate on is Facebook, but we do have an Instagram and a Twitter handle that I would beg you to follow. The main reason for that is threefold. Number one, I think that our office struggles with making sure that you as our community members know all of the things that we're doing to keep your babies safe. The number 2 thing is this is another way for you to communicate directly to us. We have direct messaging on there and things like that. And the last thing is we actually do live tweets of things that are going on in our building. Last year, Wade Elementary School caught on fire. Or, I'm sorry, they had a boiler release, let's put it that way. And we had to evacuate 725 children on the coldest day of the year in the middle of February. It was 32 degrees and it was 25-mile-an-hour winds. If you got that word, how scared are you? What are you thinking about? How fast do you think you can drive from DC to Mary B. Neal Elementary School? Okay? You see what I mean? And now you're thinking, how long is my child going to have to stand outside? So what we were doing is we were walking everybody through the response. I was sitting in my office at the Starkey building with all the powers that be as we're making decisions, talking to the school and everything else, and we're live tweeting everything that's going on. So that as somebody drove by the school and saw the kids standing outside shivering in the first minute or 2, we're now immediately letting you know what's going on. And that's what the capability of social media is for, because if we don't tell you what's going on, somebody's going to make it up. And most of the time when they make it up, it ain't right. So, with that said, that's all I have. I hope that you guys have enjoyed this. You've given me about 35, 45 minutes of your life you're never going to get back. I'm here to answer any questions that you have about anything that we've done. I'd prefer not to answer any questions about specific events that deal with HR problems or your children. Specifically, this happened to my kid and I want to know what happened because that puts me in a really bad place. And usually I can't answer those questions anyways. But if you do have any questions about the overall security of our buildings and our facilities, I'm here to answer any questions. Yes, ma'am.
I just have one question about the involvement for like the after school programs like Alpha Best. I was here last night and the door was open. Are you involved with the aftercare
Yes,
stuff?
we are, and it's a struggle, and it continues to be a struggle.
Over and over and
Yes.
over.
I was like, do you want me to close this door? They were like, oh, is it open? I'm like, yeah.
Yeah, so
With the
the
folks.
weakest link in any security posture or procedure is the humans. And think about it, Charles County is a bedroom community, right? Many of you moved here because of our school system, because of the low crime, because of the nice community, because it's just, is it mine that's crying?
Someone isn't sharing.
My kid's not sharing, that's not a shot.
You want something?
That's not a shot. She's learning. And you see my concern. When we talk about that, it'll never happen here. And trying to make sure that we are continuing to enforce those policies and procedures is a continuing event. So, Neal, Alexis, come here. Any other questions? Don't mind that. She's fine.
Mr. Starter?
Yes, ma'am.
So, I was here the day of the lock
Out.
out, but it raised concern. So like there were staff members who weren't in school, so now not only were parents in a panic, but staff members who got the notification were also in panic, because people see the word lock, and that's all that they see. They don't get to down versus out. And even kids, like I was in the cafeteria and we had hysterical children and Ms. Brown had to come in. So is, I mean, like, I know it's not something that can happen overnight, but moving forward, is that something that could be looked at using a different word?
So the way that, and here's the way that I'll explain it. This is brand new to us, and thank God that we're not good at it yet, okay? All right? But the one thing that we try and impress upon our building staff is when you make these announcements, to make them utilizing the full sentence. So lock out, get inside, lock outside doors. Instead of just saying lock out, because that, you're right, everybody just hears lock and goes, oh my Lord, something bad going on. Okay, all right, and the last part is important. All right, so those are the things that we're trying to impress, and it's going to take some time. I will tell you that the day that we did a lockout here, we actually have a brand new system that allows us to share information with our staff via a mobile app, and we completely failed at putting the information out. The reason that we failed, it was brand new, and we're trying to figure it all out and run it all together. And just like anything else, nothing that is brand new ever goes the way that we want it to the first time. So we continue to perfect what we're doing, and these are all new to our principals too. So they're used to, and I'm sure we've had cases where somebody said shelter in, no, hold on, all right, and had to go because these are brand new. This is long entrenched processes that we're changing. Do I believe it's going to happen overnight? Absolutely not. Do we have to start somewhere? Absolutely we do. I think, and we'll get better. The next time, if there ever is a next time, or when the next time is that we have to do a lockout here, I know that it will be better than the first. But thank God, we're not good at it.
So the other thing is that bright yellow became, I had, so when we got into the lunchroom, the lunch lady was like, so everybody's looking at her like, what's going on? And she finally said, there's something flashing on my screen. So they went over, they reset it, and we kept going. But after getting the kids calm in the cafeteria, you come back in the classroom, and now all the computers in the classroom are flashing this bright yellow. So kids go back in a panic thinking something else is now going on.
And that is a computer takeover software that we have. And that was the one thing that worked that day. All right, I'm telling you right now. And it does create. But what it's designed to do is to let our staff know. Because I'm going to tell you right now, the one thing that I get beat up about routinely is the fact that we don't let our staff know fast enough of the things that are going on. And I'm not a big believer in having an email sent by our principal and having an announcement made. Staff, check your email, because that freaks the kids out too. So we're trying to come up with different ways to do things. That computer takeover screen is tested, and it worked that day. And the problem is understand that people don't get into education to be first responders, right? And most people that work in education, they have never responded to an emergency, or it's been very limited. So as soon as you see those it's different than the normal operating condition. We have to train our staff, and our staff has to get better at understanding what that means, and understanding, now remember what I said, business as usual. I can't have business as usual if you as the teacher has turned completely ghost white, and you're shaking so bad that you don't know over a lockout.
Right.
All right? And that will come with time. We will continue to utilize the messages, and had they just hit the button, the message would have went away. But had I not sent the message, then I would have gotten the complaints on the other end. We didn't let anybody know. So there becomes that, and frankly, when the teachers get used to all of this and understand, they brought me in, and I've kind of turned the place upside down. Because I don't see the world as unicorns and rainbows like many people do here, and that's okay. We all see the world differently. But I've challenged a lot of things that have been entrenched here for many, many years. And and they've been on the right path, but now we're on a path that I think makes us even better. Not because of me, but because of the team that we have here. So, you're right, and there's different things, there's different perspectives on anything that we do, but there's always a rhyme or reason. Remember, when we first started, everybody that's in here probably went to public school. So you spent anywhere between 13 and 17 years in public school in different places, right? So when we talk about those things, we're all experts because we all spent the majority of our life there. And what I meant, when I say that we don't all agree, but what we do agree on is it needs to be a layered approach, and that's what we're building.
Are there drills for the teachers for those type of things?
there are drills for the teachers. They participate in the drills that we do every day, or not every day, but when they do their drill days, all the teachers participate in those. One of the things that I am hopeful for, but understand, our educators are under tremendous pressure. It's death by 1,000 cuts. This certification, oh, it's just this, it's just that, or it's just add this, or just add that, right? And now here comes this guy. We're gonna now just do this. And I can't imagine how difficult it is to get kids back into going to learning after we've done a fire drill. And we do fire drills all the time. But now when we add a different drill, or we add this, or we add that. So it's a balancing act. It is always, and one of the things that I'd really like to do, and that we're working on with a lot of our public safety partners, is building a library of tabletop exercises, 5-minute decision-making games that we can have teachers and the teacher leads, or the 3rd grade lead, the 5th grade, to sit down for 5 minutes and just to do a quick, if this happens, what do you do? Because those quick hitter scenarios are highly effective in getting that thought process. Because when I'm done teaching people what to think, I want to teach people how to think. Right? Because if we teach people how to think, you can think on your feet. And we all know during a crisis, you don't have all the information that you need. And we all thrive on information. And if we wait for all the information to come in, we've lost. So we've got to be able to make those decisions really quick.
I just wanted to say, as far as the drills, we're required to do a fire drill every month. In fact, and one extra, so it's 11. And then we do 2 of each of the other drills each semester.
Okay, thank you.
And bus evacuation drills as well.
Hold on one second. Sir, did you have a question?
I'm assuming your office is responsible for the resource officers?
We work hand in hand. They do not work for me. They work for the Charles County Sheriff's Office. But there are 2 sergeants that they have. They work with me, and we work as a collaborative team. So I can't call up a police officer and say to do this, because I'm no longer one. But we do have a long-standing, very good partnership with the Sheriff's Office. And we work collaboratively quite a bit together. And I used to be a school resource officer, so I kind of know what they can do, what they can't do. And being a retired cop from the organization does help.
And is there a requirement for staffing with regard to SROs, or does it vary throughout?
So there is no requirement per se. What we do have is we are one of the few school systems in the state of Maryland that has a school resource officer, sworn police officer, that's assigned to each of our middle schools and each of our high schools. So they literally work out of the schools. Now this year, we received a grant very recently that started on Monday, to be precise, for $276,000 from the Maryland Center for School Safety to provide additional coverage on an overtime basis to 11 schools throughout the county, and they're all elementary schools with the exception of the Robert Stevens Center. So what that means is that every day we will hire up to 6 police officers as the public school system to work at our elementary schools. So they will, when you come here, you may see a police officer sitting in the parking lot. And he's sitting there because we're paying him overtime to be a physical security specialist, to sit outside, to be a visible deterrent, and to be an immediate responder if there is something inside the building. Now, those police officers that are working that security detail will not be inside the buildings normally, because Maryland has a legal requirement that our SROs have to be certified and trained. And those police officers are not certified and trained SROs, so they can have interactions with our students in the common areas. Like if they wanted to come have lunch with the kids, we wouldn't stop them. If they want to come in to eat, we wouldn't stop them. Or come into the library, we wouldn't stop them. But their primary mission is to be a visible deterrent in the parking lot and to be an emergency responder. And that actually started on Monday.
And
So,
Is that based off of some type of risk assessment as far as how they dispatch, or just random?
So what we did is we have, because of all of our schools that we have current coverage with, we took, that's not real. Knock it off. So we took and we looked at like Mount Hope and Angela. If you've ever been to Angela? All right, so if you go to La Plata, there's a Starbucks in La Plata. Turn to the left and go about 30 miles. It just keeps going. All right, there's a school out there. It's called Mount Hope and Angela. It's a 20-minute police response with lights and sirens. So we have a police officer that's going to be assigned there. We have another cluster that's Malcolm Elementary School and T.C. Martin. We have another cluster that's Wade Elementary School and Billingsley. We have another one that includes Mary B. Neal. So it includes Brown, Middleton, Mudd, and Neal. So that officer will go between those 4 schools, and when we're paying them, that's where they will be.
Yes, ma'am.
When the lockout happened, does your office have any way to get onto, like a lot of these neighborhoods have neighborhood apps. So when that lockout happened that day, when I clicked on the app, it told me about the shooting that was in the neighborhood, so that's why, we didn't run up here because there was an immediate threat. But do you guys have access to
We do not.
apps like that, or in particular on them to disseminate information? Because, I remember rumor mill was going and.
Of course it was.
insane.
Rumor mill's still going.
Right.
We do not have access to individual community pages. There are several well-known Facebook communities, let's leave it at that, that love everything we do here at the Charles County Public Schools, that within moments, somebody will post something on there. You hope it's true, maybe, sometimes half the time, quarter of the time, never. But what we're trying to do is just to provide as many outlets as we can. The one thing that I would ask is you not only follow our stuff, but you also follow the Charles County Public Schools pages. I will tell you, in the last major event, which was the 911 call that we received, we put out 4 communications to that community. So we put it out not only on our Twitter page, our Facebook and Instagram pages, but we also sent emails to the parents, and we also sent text messages to the parents via school messenger. So when it affects your community, those are the things that we are doing. I'm not telling you that's what happened at your lockout, because one of the things that we found is we have so many capabilities, sometimes we forget what all we have. All right, and then sometimes we get overrun. We don't have enough people to activate all the different things. So we're trying to get better in that response and in that regard, that when we have to stand up our command central, for lack of a better way to put it, at the Board of Ed, when we have to stand that up, we got people that are responsible. You're hitting Twitter, you're hitting Facebook, you're hitting School Messenger, you're doing the text to the parents, and you're composing the email, because none of those things happen in a vacuum. And it is amazing the amount of work that goes into just sending a letter home to you about something that happened that affected the building. Because we want to make sure that we're timely, but we also want to make sure that we're accurate. And the one thing that we all know about crisis response, the first information that you get is always wrong. That is 100% true. Whatever information you get right at the beginning during a critical event, it's always wrong. So just keep that in mind.
Also, for a lockout, it may be that we don't know why we're on a lockout. You know,
Facebook does, don't
You
worry.
just get a mysterious phone call from somebody over at the board and say, you need to put the lockout. We'll tell you more later.
And of course, when the helicopter landed, I mean, we knew that a helicopter was landing, but not right from the very beginning.
Yeah, I think I found out literally like 5 minutes after it came across, because I live 3 blocks from where the shooting happened, and then I got the message from you all like 2 hours later
Yeah.
after the fact. Yeah.
And I was able to send out using either use Dojo or Reminds to, hey, this is something outside of the building. It's not in the building, but I didn't know anything else beyond that, so I couldn't say anything else.
Yeah, and understand, especially events that occur outside of the school system, we may not get that information right away because the police are just trying to get it.
Right.
So that day, I was actually participating in a community event away from everything, and my phone, and I get a page on my phone because I get some of the text messages for critical events that happen in the community, and I got a page on my phone that said that there had been a shooting in Waldorf. But I didn't know where it was comparatively, because I didn't know it was at Mustang Court or something. I didn't know where that was compared to any of our schools. So I have some information, but I don't have enough. So.
If someone wants to do something about the school safety committee, if someone would like to get involved,
You can tell me.
Anything else? So now I've taken another 20 minutes of your time. I hope that I'm an open book. My email, if you need me, if you can't get a hold of me, you're not trying. That's pretty much it, all right? I mean, that's pretty much it. So.
I have to say that I was lucky enough to be on the panel who interviewed folk for this position, and he's really so qualified for this job and has made an incredible difference. He knows so much. If you have a question, ask it. He can answer it. And I feel that we are safer because of him and his committee. And not only does he know it, but he's taught everybody who he works with that. So thank you for all that you do.
Thank you.
Thank you again, Mrs. Cooper, for the excellent Texas Roadhouse gift card fundraiser December 5th. Thank you for coming out tonight.
Could you guys raise your hand if you get the school messenger emails?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, good, I'm glad, because I'm never sure, and I'm hoping that it's good.